Incriminating evidence or entrapment.
The decoy initiates contact and solicits photographs from the suspect.
But the transcript of the chat may indicate Conrad was entrapped. He questions whether the decoy goes too far.
This is a short review about the film Kill Her Goats. If you'd like to see more movie reviews from films released this year, be sure to subscribe. Even with half-naked and naked Playboy models being the main characters, this film has absolutely nothing to offer. The film is supposed to be a slasher about a girl and her friends inside a cursed house one of them just bought. However, most of this demon-esque slasher film is just models talking about stuff that I don't care about. Not helped by the fact that nobody in this can act, because they're all models and not actors. I really don't have much else to say about this film. It took me 4 attempts to get through it. It's so bad. However, I did appreciate that the town is called West Craven and the film's online store is pretty cool. If you're horny, watch something else. If you want to be bored, then this is the film for you. This is a short movie review for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. For more 2023 movie reviews, be sure to like and subscribe. Wow. This film is, for my money, the best film in the MCU. James Gunn has now gone 4 for 4 with comic book movies, and this is by far his best work. Every single scene is absolutely phenomenal, with you either being incredibly entertained or ravaged by devastation. It is actually laughable how much better this film is than almost the entirety of Phase 4. Anyway, I would highly recommend this. I don't want to spoil anything, so just go and watch it. If I had to put it in the 2022 list, it would be second. It is that good. A phenomenal trilogy brought to an end perfectly. This is a short review for Bikini Hackers. If you want to see more movie reviews for this year's releases, subscribe for more.
Please! Please!
Don't watch this film. This movie's editing is actually inept, with cuts either being far too early or stupidly late with very little middle ground. Even if it was good though, all it would be cutting to would be crap camera work, shite dialogue, and atrocious acting.
So what's the plan? So what's the play?
Combined with some downright dreadful sound mixing, this cacophony of technical errors is finished off by a terrible story. The women look good, but I don't understand why they're in bikinis, apart from to keep people who accidentally put this on deliberately turned on. The villain is way too OTT as well. I can't even enjoy him ironically, because it all just feels like a sad attempt at a movie. Overall, if there is a god, they've given up on us because no all-powerful, loving being would allow anyone to see this. This is a short review for the movie Renfield. If you want to see more movie reviews for this year's releases, subscribe for more. This film may be the best depiction of a menacing yet hilarious villain in a film that I have seen for many a movie. The two Nicks are phenomenal together and make a good story about Dracula's assistant great to watch. So somebody tell me why the fuck Awkwafina and her subplot are in this film. It absolutely tanks the film and torpedoes a glorious, campy and endearing love letter to Dracula in his preceding movies. A staggering disappointment, as without this immensely self-serious B-plot, and with its effects, this is exactly my type of film. This is a short review for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. If you would like to see more movie reviews, be sure to subscribe. This movie is perfect. Absolutely no notes. The music, acting and story are all stellar and deserve incredible amounts of praise. However, despite all that greatness, the animation is definitely the MVP here. Every Spider-Man is absolutely beautifully animated, especially Spider-Punk. It is quite possibly the greatest animated film of all time and the best superhero film of all time. I implore you to watch it. I don't want to spoil any of it, so I will leave you there. This is a short review for the Pillow Party Massacre. If you would like to see more movie reviews, be sure to like and subscribe. This is a movie that wants to be a modern version of the Slumber Party Massacre so badly, because it's almost the exact same film. I haven't seen that film all the way through in a singular sitting, but I know the plot. But from what I have seen, it's a much better film than this. In fact, The only similarity between the two films, beyond the title, are the scenes of gratuitous nudity that are needlessly in both films. A cheap looking, feeling and sounding film, there is no charm and a lack of interesting kills. A silly story to go along with it makes this film so painful to watch, leaving you begging for death from this knockoff Ghostface. Luckily, now that this review is over, I never have to talk about this terrible film ever again. This is a short review for Scream 6. If you'd like to see more movie reviews, be sure to like and subscribe. I really like this film, as I did 1 and 5. I haven't seen 2, 3 and 4. This film does a lot less commentary than the other two that I've seen, but the slasher element is probably the best of them. The opening sequence is fantastic, and Melissa Barrera y Jenna Ortega son muy buena en esta película. They really take the film to greatness and their dynamic is brilliant. The only problem I really have with the film is the last 20 minutes or so. The film kind of falls apart for me. But there are no spoilers here, so all I will say is that you will see what I mean when you watch the film. And you will watch it. That's an order. Overall though, it's a good and it's a tense time. Ranking all the Spider-Man films. Number 10, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, it's a garbage film. Number 9, Spider-Man 3, it's a fun film but it's also a mess. Number 8, Spider-Man Far From Home, it's a good setup film but outside of that it's just fine. Number 7, The Amazing Spider-Man, Andrew did his best. Number 6 is Spider-Man Homecoming. I think it's Tom Holland's best solo outing as Spider-Man. Number 5 is the original 2002 Spider-Man, which is a classic of the superhero genre. Number 4, Spider-Man No Way Home. Really fun, but the film is complete bollocks. Spider-Man 2 is at number 3, and personally I feel it's the best of the Peter Parker films. At number 2 is Into the Spider-Verse. It's phenomenal, and it also won an Oscar. Number 1 had to be Across the Spider-Verse. It's just peak cinema. This is a short review for All Fangs Out. If you would like to see more movie reviews, subscribe for more. What the hell was that? An abomination of a movie that manages to combine cheapness, terrible dialogue, and a lack of acting talent. There is almost nothing redeeming about this. To let you know the absolute level we're dealing with here, a man gets his hand cut clean off and starts bleeding profusely and still manages to survive. It's that dumb. I don't know how common it is for Americans to cross the border to get plastic surgery, but it best be a lot to justify the existence of this absolute garbage. A terrible film that I would not recommend you watch under any circumstances. Ranking all the modern Doctors, and just FYI, I like them all. 5th place is Jodie Whittaker. She's someone whose performance I actually really enjoyed, but she was kind of saddled with the worst era of the modern show. 4th is Matt Smith. Calm down. He felt like his performances tended to be for younger audiences most of the time, and it wasn't my favourite, although I might be influenced in that opinion by the fact that his era was right next to Capaldi's. Number 3 is the vastly underrated Christopher Eccleston. It's a shame that he doesn't seem to like playing the Doctor, because he's the one that brought Doctor Who back. 2nd, David Tennant. Please everybody calm down. I know he's the Doctor that probably got you into the show, and he's probably the most iconic one, and I am excited to have him back, just there's somebody else who I love a bit more. Peter Capaldi at first. The only Oscar winner to play the Doctor. My favourite. He brought an age distinction to the character, which was a nice change of pace compared to the younger Doctors before him, and it's just a shame he was saddled with the worst version of Clara. This is a short review for the film Sisu. If you would like to see more movie reviews, subscribe for more. This is the stupidest film I've ever seen. It's like if somebody watched John Wick and thought that John Wick was an indestructible angel of death rather than just a man. Light spoilers ahead, but Sisu really should have died multiple times, and the ending is really stupid. I do like the fact that he never talks and the film is shot well, but the movie is too ridiculous to be taken serious like it's acting. Overall, if you want to watch this movie, no you don't. You want to watch John Wick, because that is 1,000 times better at what this film is trying to do. Top 5 worst films of all time. You voted for it, so I delivered. At number 5 is Fangs Out, a joke of a vampire film that doesn't deserve to be seen by human eyes, and I made another short video on it. Number 4, Bikini Hackers. I made a video on this one as well as a short review, because it just sucks so much. It's an amateur clusterfuck and it was horrific. Number 3, Thor, God of Thunder, the worst Thor film I've ever seen, an atrociously boring load of nothing. Number 2, Locked Up. I'm making a video about this one because there is that much wrong with it, so subscribe for that because I just can't dump it all here. Number 1, jailbait, an absolute insult to the art form of cinema itself, and an abomination that I cannot in good conscience recommend even as a joke. This is a short review for the movie Girl in the Closet. If you would like to see more movie reviews, subscribe for more. Why do we, as a society, continue to let Lifetime make movies and shows? Not only should it be an international human rights violation to let these people continue with their devilish work, but we should all actively seek to end it. At no point in this film is anybody in a closet, not even the gay character. With the closest being a girl in a cupboard, the story is stupid, relying on gross incompetence, racism, and unexplainable apathy from almost everyone involved, whilst the acting is adequate at best. A cheap, flat, and silly mess, there is no reason for anybody to ever watch this film at any point in their life.
Nah, I say let it die. Let it die, let it die, let it shrivel up and come on, who's with me, huh?
Ranking all 12 Star Wars films. Based on the Spider-Man rankings, people will hate this. Number 12, Rise of Skywalker. Absolutely disappointing garbage. 11, The Clone Wars. Just like Stargate, this series is goated, but the film sucks. 10, Solo: A Star Wars Story. 9, The Phantom Menace. Revisionism be damned, this film sucks in every aspect. 8, Attack of the Clones. I know many say this is the worst one, but I think it's fine. 7, The Force Awakens. I like the film, partly because I loved A New Hope, but I had fun nonetheless. 6, The Last Jedi. I know this one's going to be controversial, so I'll just let the people see down below. 5, Revenge of the Sith. Probably the most fun Star Wars film, as the movie really goes balls to the wall. Number 4, Return of the Jedi. A brilliant film that rounds off the original trilogy beautifully, but not perfectly. Number 3, Rogue One. Disney's best Star Wars film, and it's not even close. Fantastic ending as well. Number 2, A New Hope. The one that started it all, a masterclass in 70s filmmaking, and one of the most iconic films of all time. First place, obviously, is The Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, it might be an unoriginal pick, but it's the correct one. It's one of the best films of all time. Let's have a look at my new content schedule. Mondays will be HVP content, mostly remastered stuff, but other stuff will be coming within time. Tuesday will be the short of the week, the best short that I've made across the week from other platforms. Wednesday will be the main long form content of the week, so stuff like movie reviews and TCAP episode reviews and stuff like that, always on Wednesdays. Thursdays will be TCAP facts, these will be short videos. Friday is nothing. Saturday is movie review shorts day. And finally, Sundays will be movie rankings, as they always have been. So subscribe for more. This is a short review for the film Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. If you'd like to see more movie reviews, be sure to subscribe for more. What on earth possessed you to waste such a great concept? A clear rush job to try and cash in immediately as the IP went public, this film feels like a very rough first draft. It's also full of stuff that you'd see in any 15-year-old's favourite horror film, like TNA, a bunch of women and a masked killer. A second one is coming out soon, and hopefully it has more of a story than this one, which was just every haunted house slasher ever. We won't see Tigger because he's still got decades at Disney, but hopefully they can craft chicken salad out of this chicken shit that they've got left. Overall, as Johnny Recaps Movies said, at least they tried, and that's the nicest thing that can be said for this.
What is a fact or statistic that seems fake but is real?
North Macedonia was founded in 1991, which means half of their goals at international tournaments have come from a player that is older than the actual country.
Is this the reason that TCAP was cancelled? On the 5th of November 2006, Lewis Conrad put 9mm of metal through his head at a high speed after being caught by To Catch a Predator. It's speculated that the late DA was tipped off about the police and the camera crew arriving on the scene and decided not to give them an exclusive. Many people say that this ended the show as the fallout led to a multi-million-dollar lawsuit from his sister. However, there were multiple reasons for the show ending, so many that I made a video on it. NBC thought that the show would be consistently rewatchable, the show was already highly controversial, and predators were beginning to no-show en masse. However, this probably was the major incident that led to TCAP's cancellation, so send this to somebody who asks, Oppenheimer review. Are you utterly terrified by the prospect of annihilation via a nuclear holocaust? No? Well, this film will change that for you. A phenomenal film that shows you how science, arrogance and ideology have led us to a point in time where we can't put the genie back into the bottle. Every aspect of this film is brilliant, but where the movie needed to deliver with the bomb, it exceeded all expectations.
It's almost like the people who worked on this film deserve to be fairly compensated for their efforts, I don't know. Overall though, Oppenheimer is a disturbing and harrowing experience that will leave you ultimately shattered and changed at the end of watching it, and that was my Barbie review. Some people will call this stupid, woke nonsense. Others will call this a feminist deconstruction of the world's patriarchy. I'm going to call this a really fun movie. Ryan Gosling might actually be the funniest actor currently working, and Margot Robbie is brilliant, as always. The look of this film is striking and extremely unique, combining to give us a joyous movie thanks to Greta Gerwig and her wonderful direction. It's almost like the studio should fairly compensate the people that worked on the film, I don't know. Overall though, this is a brilliant movie, and that was my top 5 films of all time. Number 5, Django Unchained. Tarantino's best film for my money, with a stacked cast and a very well told story. Number 4, Grave of the Fireflies. The best and most devastating war film that I've ever seen. It will leave you shattered and thoroughly changed at the end of watching it. Number 3, Alien. The best of both sci-fi and horror. It's a perfectly told story from one of the best film crews ever assembled. Number 2, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. After all, it's my list. A film that I didn't think would be as good as it is, but it blew me away and shoved the first to 6th. Number 1, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Just watch the film, please. It's phenomenal and I don't want to spoil anything.
I'm pretty tired. Think I'll go home now.
To Catch a Predator caught hundreds of predators. At least, we'd all have loved it even more if they did. In reality, they could only catch those who bit. Before we get to the actual number though, it is important to remember what these guys came here to do and how important it is that they were caught at all. The actual number of predators caught was in the hundreds range, as according to the fat decoy on the Temple of Teacup, 297 men were caught in the stings. Considering there were only 13 investigations, that's an average of nearly 23 predators in an investigation. That's quite impressive, so send this to someone to reassure them that the Flash review. What the hell was that? Before Barry goes back in time, the only thing I enjoyed was Wonder Woman's theme that goes like, you know that one. They just play it for no reason in this film. Afterwards, I like Superwoman, that's pretty much it. Everybody's already talked about how tasteless it is that they made dead people shuck and jive for cameos, so I'll leave that. And the story's rather boring whilst also feeling far too fast. Overall, it serves as an encapsulation of the entirety of the DCEU, as it was a jumbled mess with some good elements that were drowned out. Mercifully though, it came to an end, and that was the worst 5 MCU films. Number 5, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Everybody knows how bad this is. Number 4, Ant-Man. Spoiler, this isn't the last time Ant-Man will be here, but this film was boring. Number 3, Thor: Love and Thunder. Not only did this look horrific, but it also felt like no one who was involved actually wanted to be there except Bale in the first scene. Number 2, Eternals. Shut up saying that this is a misunderstood masterpiece. It's a garbage, drawn-out abortion metaphor with good bits separated by valleys of terribleness. Number 1, Ant-Man and the Wasp. I just can't with these terrible Ant-Man films. A great cast just absolutely ruined. Proper garbage.
I mean, I'm sorry, I'm trying to process a tremendous amount of insane information.
To Catch a Predator had a 100% conviction rate. It's something that we'd all have loved to hear, but unfortunately it's not true. Some people, like Michael Willis, managed to beat their case in court due to lost evidence. Others, such as Joseph Roisman, had his parents pay for a rich defence and had the judge throw out the case because he didn't like the tactics used. Overall, according to the fat decoy on the Temple of Teacup, 88.36% of men caught on the show were convicted, not including the first 2 stings. In pure numbers, 205 of the 260 post-Washington Predators were criminally convicted, so send this to somebody who thinks, how many To Catch a Predator episodes were there? It's a valid question, as whilst there were 13 investigations, some episodes did have 2 parts. The Bethpage, Fairfax, Riverside, and Bowling Green investigations all only had 1 episode. Meanwhile, Greenville, Fort Myers, Fortson, Petaluma, Long Beach, Murphy, Flagler Beach, and Ocean County were all 2-part episodes. This means that the 13 investigations led to 20 episodes altogether. So send this to somebody who asks, when did To Catch a Predator get police? We've seen the police tase predators, predators getting tackled, and an officer in a ghillie suit. But those that have seen my video about the first episode might be wondering, when did they get the police? That's because at first they didn't have police there. Instead, they would pass the information on for the police to usually ignore. After the second investigation, though, a decision was made by the show to ensure that there was a police presence from then on. So to answer the question at the start of the short, it was episode 3. So send this to a friend who's asking.
For what it's worth, I am continuously impressed by you.
Sound of Freedom review. So this film came to the UK and I saw it opening night because all I saw was that it was a MAGA circle jerk. It's not. At least not in the movie. It's just a mid-film about an important topic, which doesn't make it good either. There was a fair bit to like about the film from a filmmaking standpoint, but it was routinely ruined by terrible moments, like when they're quietly saying lines such as, "That's the sound of freedom." Like they're badasses, but I audibly just sighed in the cinema when I heard that. Also, for a story like this, the film is almost devoid of tension, partly because it's so needlessly slow and boring. Overall, it's kind of a bad film with some good elements in it, but people who are telling you that you're a Nazi for seeing this are insane. 5 worst films of the year so far. Number 5, Strays. Dog shit. I think I laughed at this one once, even though it was more of a what the fuck am I watching, rather than a funny joke, haha. Number 4, Spider Clan Lotus. This might actually be the most straight up boring film of the year, maybe even of all time, because nothing happens, so it's really hard to review. Number 3, Kill Her Goats. I've actually doubled the score for this film since I reviewed it ages ago, and it's not for the TNA, although that didn't hurt its rating. The film is still horrific, but at least I can appreciate that some effort did go into this film. Number 2, Fangs Out. I still don't understand why this film was made, why people agreed to be in it, or why they wanted their names in the credits. This seriously ran number 1 close. And number 1 is, of course, Bikini Hackers. It's still the worst film I've seen in my entire life, and it's horrendous garbage that I don't want to discuss further. Hey everyone, this is just a quick short to let you all know that with the start of the new academic year, video production will slow down until December. I will do what I can, but I can't promise to stick to the schedule that I originally wanted and promised you guys. Videos are still coming though, and they'll be even better than before. There'll just be a little bit more of a gap in between them. Also, movie reviews should hopefully still be every week on the Saturdays, but if you can't wait until then make sure to check out my IMDb page for a list of my 2023 movie rankings. Thanks, and subscribe. Ape vs Mecha Ape review. When people talk about dumb fun films, this is the kind of film that I want. I own both this film and its predecessor on DVD, special edition of course, but no part of this movie is great. Let's just get that out of the way right now. Barely any of it's even good, to be honest. But I honestly believe that if you cannot glean any enjoyment from this movie, then you're dead inside. The original, Ape vs Monster, was a better time, but this is still enjoyable nonetheless. That's why this gets a 4 out of 10, and that was my Pastor update. So in 2021 I made a video about a chaplain who got the sack for being a homophobic idiot, and a few months later, there were updates. The Daily Mail went about being the Daily Mail about everything, and that Stormzy quote just started creeping on up in my mind. But Mr. Pastor Man went on GB News to go and complain with that fake vicar that they've got on there, and he did all of that just to lose his case. The tribunal held that his redundancy was not a result of victimisation or discrimination, and that he fundamentally misunderstood who the equality group were. So all I have to say is hold that L, bozo. Past Lives review. Support SAG-AFTRA in the WGA. I'm going to come right out and say I didn't get what this film was trying to do. I felt like the movie was too slow with not very much happening and handled the American husband quite poorly. Having said that though, I thought the relationship between the two characters was really well written and acted. Whilst it might have felt like nothing happened with it, they really felt very good and believable. Overall, it is enough to make me want to watch the film again, hence the score, and that was my Dumb Money review. Support SAG-AFTRA in the WGA.
Holy fucking shit.
I like The Social Network. It's just a shame that even with it trying to be, this film isn't anywhere near that level. The script is worse, the story is told worse, the acting is worse, the casting is worse, and even though The Social Network is not a comedy, it's a lot funnier than this film as well.
Sorry, my Prada's in the cleaners! Along with my hoodie and my fuck you flip-flops, you pretentious douchebag!
The story of the game stops stock. It's just a fine choice to make a film about, it's nothing special, but there was nothing really to lift this film. It can really drag at times, even at just an hour and 45 minutes, and I don't plan on ever watching it again, and that was my Saw X review. Before watching this, I'd only seen Saw 1 and 2 and enjoyed them quite a bit. This film is set in between them and feels very different but also the same, if that makes sense. It's a good sequel and a good film overall with some very fun moments, and is mostly what I wanted from this kind of film. The beginning feels very different to the two that I've seen in a good way, and the changing dynamics from the first two make for an interesting film. Unfortunately for me, the cinema experience was ruined by three of the most annoying pairs of people ever to disgrace the seats of a movie theatre. Also, if gore's not for you, don't go to see a Saw film. But overall, I thought this film was quite good and a rather interesting look at John Kramer as a character that I will likely watch again, and that was my What scared you as a child? It could be a TV show, a movie, or a person. Tomorrow, I share with you everything that utterly terrified and scarred me as a child. So be sure to be here for that, and let me know. Thoughts on X? One of the most talked about horror films of 2022. X starred Mia Goth and came from the mind of writer and director Ty West. About adult performers getting slaughtered on a farm by an old couple, this film has some great positives going for it. The acting is phenomenal, especially from Mia Goth and General Tazer, and the fact that this was written in 2 weeks does not show in the script at all, as it's pretty fine. But I didn't particularly engage that well with the story as a whole, and a lot of the time it could feel very samey and generic. However, I am glad that it spawned a trilogy, as I enjoyed Pearl considerably more and am very hyped for Maxine. Overall it was an okay time that I probably won't deliberately rewatch, but if somebody sticks it on then I won't complain at all. And those were my thoughts on Pearl. In my opinion, Pearl is a fair bit better than X. In my own released 2022 films video, I ranked X at 30th out of 55 and Pearl as 22nd. Its acting, while still good, is not on the same level as X, but I like the story a lot more and adore the ending. It's a lot less raunchy, which is interesting considering what was almost the entire point of X, but it doesn't really affect my enjoyment. However, it does make me feel as if these films are a little bit less connected. Ty West and Mia Goth clearly work very well together, so I'm excited to what they can do when they produce Maxine. And those were my Maxine has me hyped. Over the past 2 days I've talked about X and Pearl, mostly because I'm really looking forward to this film. Allegedly this film is going to have Kevin Bacon, Giancarlo Esposito, and a bunch of other names to act alongside Mia Goth in an 80s LA setting. I love films set in the 80s, I love it even more when it's in LA, and I have belief in Mia Goth's and Ty West's vision for the series. We don't have a release date or a trailer yet, but hopefully we do soon, and that is why. Cobweb review. Cobweb is a very mediocre film with one great scene that I can't talk about because of spoilers. A typical and generic story can't be saved by the acting, as besides the two parents, one being Homelander by the way, it's nothing special. It's a very slow moving story, and the quote, monster design is pretty stupid. To tell you how stupid it was, me and a friend went to watch this in cinemas early, and when we saw it we almost burst out laughing. I'm not the kind of guy to laugh at something stupid when it's not supposed to be funny, so that should tell you everything about it really. Also, without getting too spoilery, a lot of the conflicts of the film could be vastly different if the people in it just used a bit of common sense. I can't wait to break this one down in the proper year in film review, but for now that was my ranking all the screams by sets of ghost faces. Spoilers ahead, and support SAG-AFTRA and the WGA. Number 6, Scream 3. One guy who should be dead because, remember, Gail checked his pulse.
She checks his pulse to make sure he's dead. She checks his pulse to make sure he's dead.
Number 5, Scream 4. It was a good concept that was never really followed through on. I know they wanted to do that in the sequel to it and it never materialised, but still it just didn't feel great. Number 4, Scream 6. There's a bit too many, and again, we saw one of them die. It was a bit less stupid than Scream 3 though. Number 3, Scream 5. Controversial placement, I know, especially considering that apparently Amber now has super strength. Number 2, Scream 2. I really liked both motivations, and Mrs. Loomis is just a better Mrs. Voorhees. Number 1, Scream 1. It's an almost perfect film in my opinion, and these two are the GOATs. Who was Wes Craven? Born in Cleveland, Ohio in 1939, Wes Craven was one of the most influential creative voices in the history of horror movies. Getting his start in the industry with hardcore X-rated films, Craven started his directorial Hollywood career in his late 30s with The Last House on the Left. After that film found success, he would go on to direct The Hills Have Eyes, as well as other movies such as Swamp Thing before his most famous series, Scream and A Nightmare on Elm Street. Sadly, Craven passed away in 2015 at the age of 76, with many of the people he worked with only having positive things to say. And that was a short biography of the legendary Wes Craven. So send this to somebody who asks. 5 worst horror films of the year. Number 5, Stay Out of the Basement. More like stay away from this movie. Number 4, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. A waste of what could have been a really fun premise. Number 3, Girl in the Closet. I'm counting this whether or not people agree. One thing we should all agree on though, is that this film sucks, with a capital sucks. Number 2, Kill Her Goats. This film should have just been a Playboy exclusive, as it's still just half naked models being chased around and then getting fully naked. Number 1, Fangs Out. The second worst film of the year, hands down, and definitely the worst horror film of the year, and it deserves to top the list of ranking every Halloween heist. Number 8, Season 7. What was this garbage fire? Number 7, Season 4. My least favourite character winning a rushed heist? You best believe it's near the bottom. Number 6, Season 2. Not bad, but it was definitely an inferior sequel. Number 5, Season 6. It's nice to see Terry win, it just felt that this heist was a little bloated. Number 4, Season 3. A great twist that finished laying the foundations for these kind of episodes. Number 3, Season 1. The original, and probably the most realistic of the heists that we got. Number 2, Season 8. A fitting finale, even if I feel that Boyle should have won this one. Number 1, Season 5. Because it's arguably the best episode of the show. Stay Out of the Basement review. What an absolutely brilliant use of 71 minutes to deliver an experience of complete nothingness. Starring 2 actually pretty good child actors, this movie is impossible to review because literally nothing happens. I think there is like 1 kill in the entire movie and it's on a character we knew nothing about, and therefore we don't care about it. It's perfectly possible I just didn't get what this movie was trying to go for because the movie communicated absolutely nothing effectively. I would get into spoilers now and break my tradition, but as you can gather, there is nothing to spoil because nothing happens. A waste of some pretty decent talent. I won't be rewatching to see if I can understand it better. And that was my Friday the 13th 1980 is a film that I feel is unfairly maligned. Whilst not the greatest slasher film of all time, it is decent enough and rather entertaining and appropriately tense at times. It's also not as raunchy as the filmmakers of the 2009 reboot would have you believe, with it being rather standard for a horror film in that regard. It is a bit confusing how this film of all films became such a horror juggernaut, but some of its spin-offs are rather good. Probably because they're almost all the exact same film, with Jason instead of Mrs. Voorhees. It's very fun to see the cast in this, as it's some of Adrian King's only work. Kevin Bacon was still new, and Betsy Palmer is fantastic. In fact, she's especially good considering she only did it to get a new car. But those were just a quick few thoughts I had about my second favourite horror film. Some of you have heard me talk about Scream as being my favourite horror film of all time, but my second is the 6th ever horror film nominated for Best Picture, Get Out. Written and directed by first-timer Jordan Peele, it's a movie that I really don't want to spoil at all. I've never seen a film capture that unranked casual racism of certain people quite like this, and I would highly recommend that you watch this as soon as possible. If you've already seen it, just go and watch it again, because this is...
You know, I think your tits are getting bigger. Mine?
FBI, open up!
Who is Roger Corman? The king of cult, the pope of pop cinema, that one guy who required that scene in the Slumber Party Massacre. Born in Detroit, Michigan in 1926, Corman is an incredibly influential producer and director, most notable for founding and running New World Pictures. Directing 55 films and producing 385 more, Corman is credited as being active between the years of 1954 and 2008. The man is still alive and has been married to his wife for 53 years with 4 children and is understandably retired. He is credited with influence over an insane amount of Hollywood talents that I'd have to make a full-length video about. So, send this to somebody who asks.
Ranking every Scream opening. Obviously, these are all scenes that happen before the title card appears. 6, Scream 4. By the time we get to reality, I'm bored personally. Number 5, Scream 2. I'm just salty that this wasn't a phone call death, to be honest. Number 4, Scream 3. It's a pretty good opening, but I really feel like Cotton shouldn't have been an opening kill. Number 3, Scream 5. I find it cool that Tara doesn't die and the attack itself is brutal as hell. Number 2 is the original. It's the best single kill by far and a perfect opening for the franchise. Number 1, Scream 6, a fantastic double kill and subversion. I really like both of them, which gives it a slight edge for me. The Friday the 13th remake is very weird, but that's what you get from a Michael Bay produced film. Confirmed to be in the same universe as the Transformers films, this feels a lot like Bay's Transformers. It has a questionable relationship with the source material, is very violent, and is very fond of sexualizing its female cast members. The filmmakers said that the nudity was important to bring back for them, but this is kind of overboard, especially the scene with Bree and the wakeboarding scene. The kills though range from good to fantastic, but the main drawback is we never really care about any character, except for Danielle Panabaker's character though, who coincidentally is the only main character woman that doesn't get nude. Overall, it's a very strange film that I don't mind, but isn't as good as the original, and that was my take on it. Dream Scenario Review. Oh my god, what a film. Some people will hate this because that's the way the world works, but it's okay because I love this film. I'm kind of biased because Nick Cage is probably my favourite actor working today, but I adored his performance here. He really disappears into the role and his comedy chops are fantastic and really elevate the film to new levels. The only thing I wasn't totally enamoured with in the entirety of this film was the editing / pacing of it. It was very quick in the opening 30 minutes and at times it felt a bit disorientating, but it didn't bother me too much. Overall, this was one of the most enjoyable cinema experiences that I've had for months. And that was my Saltburn is the most wonderfully weird watching experience of 2023. Going into this, I thought it was going to be some sort of like an Oxford University type of Great Gatsby film, but that's not the case at all. It's so much better. This film is set in these gorgeous places and has some shots that are just fantastically constructed, which helps to show that this film is dialed up to 11. It is so much funnier than I thought it was going to be, but it's also a lot more disgusting. As for the cast, I wasn't as in love with Rosamund Pike's performance as everybody else, but it was still a great performance. Jacob Elordi is so good in this that it made me question why he was in the Kissing Booth trilogy, and the rest of the cast was spot on too. Big Barry was phenomenal as always, but if there was one thing I truly wasn't expecting, it was to see so much of his ginormous package. Anyway, that's why I think that A Haunting in Venice review. I can't give an objective view of this film, but my thoughts are real and unfiltered. I was very surprised that I liked this film, given how I disliked the previous 2 installments in the series. I probably liked this one because of the lack of CGI in addition to many horror elements. It was a really enjoyable watch. The characters are great, it's a Kenneth Branagh film so the direction is interesting, and the acting is brilliant as they have been throughout the entire series. The most creative of this current trilogy, the only major problem I have with this film is the editing. It's needlessly choppy at times and there were some very odd choices that I didn't personally understand. Overall though, it was a good watch and I would recommend that you watch this, as well as sending a friend the 5 worst major films of the year. To qualify, the film must have been released in the cinemas during the year 2023 or released as a major streaming service's original film. Number 5, It Lives Inside. Slightly above number 4 because whilst crap, this film was crap with a lot of style. Number 4, Five Nights at Freddy's, a movie made solely for FNAF nerds, of which I am not. Number 3, Strays. It was on my top 5 worst films of the year list and is the only film from that list that makes it onto this list here. Number 2, Spy Kids Armageddon. It's an insult to the original series and they were crap too, so that should tell you everything about this abomination. And the worst, The Exorcist Believer. My sister's boyfriend, who I went to go and see this with, said that this was the worst film he's ever seen, and I can genuinely understand why he said that to me. It absolutely deserves to be crowned the worst of How to Have Sex. No, this isn't a film about your search history, it's a film about consent and boundaries. The film explores these topics powerfully and effectively. Beyond that though, the film is a bit
bare. Some moments feel like weird inclusions and others feel stretched out. Whilst I thought that the film was good, it felt like it would have been better as a short film instead of a full-length feature. Outside of that though, this is a great directional / writing debut feature film from Molly Manning Walker, who is someone whose work I will be watching closely in the future. Fun fact, she was the cinematographer for Scrapper, which I also thought was good, but looks great. So it's been a good year for her. But overall, this film will likely be a breakout feature for most of those involved, and I would say it's worth a watch whilst it's in the cinemas especially. And I suppose that you could say that that was Money Shot, the Pornhub story review. Netflix, thank God that you decided to pay your actors and writers properly, because if this is the kind of schlock that we were going to be getting, I did not want it. This was a kind of documentary about an interesting topic, which is why the score is so high for those wondering. It kind of reminded me of Hot Wheels Wanted, another porn documentary by the people at Netflix, but this was incredibly slow throughout, but the topic manages to save it from a total disaster, and there are a few interesting people in the documentary. This review may feel a bit bare, but that's because there wasn't really much to talk about here, as a lot of it was quite repetitive. But overall, I could watch it again, but I have no desire to and certainly wouldn't recommend it. And that was my The Exorcist Believer review. What a piece of fucking garbage. Ranked at number 1 of the 5 worst films of the year video that I did. Almost nothing about this film was good. There were so many non sequitur speeches, the CGI was the Flash levels of horrific, and the characters suck more than a vacuum cleaner. The twist ending, which I won't spoil, is incredibly dumb as well, and I'm glad I didn't directly pay for this viewing experience. As I've said before, I saw this with my sister's boyfriend, and he said it was the worst film he's ever seen. It's definitely the worst film I've ever seen in the cinema, and was so bad that I skipped the special cat person preview that was going on that night. It's a garbage film that probably has the original director looking down and thanking God every day that he's dead, and I think that I was a bit too nice in this cat person review. I am so confused right now, bruh. A movie that was brimming with style, a very charming lead and an interesting premise. For every positive, there is something off. The movie manages to comment on gender issues in a much less irritating way than the trailers made out, and was actually one of the film's strengths. But the film's story feels a bit underdeveloped, things kind of just happen without proper cause or effect, and overall, it's kind of boring in places. It's a difficult film to talk about with spoilers, so I can't wait to talk about it in my 2023 films review. But I will say Emilia Jones carries the film. Overall, it's a unique time that won't be enjoyed by everyone, but there is definitely something of substance here. I don't know quite what the point of this film was, but I can tell you the point of this, the 5 best Doctor Who seasons. Sorry classic fans, I love you, but this is just Modern Who. Number 5, Season 2. Tennant got off to a great start, but it was still his worst season. Number 4, Season 1. Eccleston is a vastly underrated Doctor, and it's a shame he only got this one season. Number 3, Season 10. Capaldi at his best. He's finally rid of Clara's worst version, and Moffat's most consistent season is this one. Number 2, Season 3. The stretch of episodes from Human Nature until The Sound of Drums is absolutely brilliant, but it's not the best stretch because that belongs to number 1, Season 4. It's better than you remember it, and the last 6 episodes of this season all could be in my top 10. It is the greatest run of episodes in Doctor Who history, and that's why it tops my list of
top 5 MCU films of all time. Number 5, Thor Ragnarok. Not even close to the best Taika Waititi film, which is Jojo Rabbit, but it is still great regardless. Number 4, Guardians of the Galaxy. The worst in the Guardians series, but James Gunn still delivers a great film. Number 3, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. A brilliant sequel that excels in almost every area. Number 2, Avengers Infinity War. Not really a movie, but more of an event. It balances the cast of characters very well, and the ending is iconic. Number 1, Guardians of the Galaxy 3. It is as good as you think it is, a very emotional story packed full of character. I've said it before, but this is the best that the MCU has to offer.
Scream 7, Thanksgiving review. I'm annoyed at how much I enjoyed this film. Spyglass are some grade A for canning Melissa Barrera, but they are 2 for 3 this year so far. Having said that, the average is 6 for the 3 films because Spy Kids was just so atrocious. Back to this film though, everything about it exceeded my expectations to the point that I was forgetting that Addison Rae was not an actor. It was that great. I did feel that at times this was just a Thanksgiving Scream movie but adding Hostel's gore, especially with the way that they handled the killer. Also, the reveal feels like it doesn't make sense physically, but I won't spoil that here. Overall, it's a fun time that I will be eagerly anticipating the streaming release of, and that was my Killers of the Flower Moon review. This film is fantastic. Martin Scorsese said recently, "I'm old, I read stuff, I want to tell stories and there's no more time." And that's such a shame. Here he has created such a finely crafted and thought-provoking movie that evokes such strong feelings of anger and sadness. It's not a film that I'd watch to necessarily have a good time, although there are some hilarious moments in there, but its message is perfectly conveyed. DiCaprio and Neo are great as always, but Lily Gladstone is by far the movie's MVP. Her performance is phenomenal, and if she's not nominated for every award under the sun, then I'll eat my feet. Overall, this film was a modern classic from one of the best living directors, and that was my Some Other Hood review. The only reason I could ever sit through this film again is for the bank scene. Outside of that scene, which genuinely might be the funniest film scene of the year, nothing really landed with me. I didn't like the story, the characters were kind of grating, and also this film has this weird habit of just dropping characters after one scene. Ed Sheeran, Peter Serafinovich, Jeremy Corbyn, just to name a few, all appeared prominently in the advertising, but were in just a singular scene. Not that I mind much, as there wasn't really much to care about. Altogether. If it was on in the room, I'd sit down to watch it for the bank scene and then stay because I might as well, but I ain't ever putting this on myself. I've also seen worse comedies with fewer types of jokes this year, so I didn't find it excruciating. But overall, that was my Five Nights at Freddy's review. I got cooked for saying that this was my third least favourite major film release of 2023, so I'm just going to give it praise. I like the animatronics. I'm a big lover of practical effects, and they genuinely look brilliant and crafted with real attention and love. I like the fact that people who haven't played the games will be confused because the film was underdeveloped in the script. Those guys, play FNAF. I like that outside of the animatronics, the film looks like garbage. We all judge films on looks too much. Who cares if it's a visual medium? It doesn't have to be good. Who cares if they gave away the William Afton twist in the marketing? To summarise, this film is a flawless masterpiece once you take out all the flaws. And so this movie should be given 10s across the board. And that was my Talk to Me review. What a pleasant surprise. This is by far the best film I can think of that has anything to do with YouTubers. An actually scary time that sticks with you well after you finish watching it. This film feels like it will be a modern horror classic. The only negative I can really say with the film is that the ending felt a tad underwhelming, but other than that I only really have nitpicks. Overall though, it's nice to see talented YouTubers given a chance to do something special, and them seizing the opportunity with both hands is great. And that was my 5 movies I really want to talk about more. These are all from this year and I can't wait to delve into them in my 2023 year in film review. 5. Barbie is the most successful review I did this year and I have a lot more to discuss about this. Number 4, Five Nights at Freddy's, because the fans hate me for hating it, so I want to annoy them a bit more. Number 3, Kill Her Goats, because it's terrible, but in a really fun way. Number 2, Thanksgiving, because I feel like it's going to be a really long time until I enjoy a Spyglass film again. Number 1, Cat Person, because I can't make up my mind whether I like this film or not, and I think talking about it will help clear it up and make me focus my mind. So that's why it tops my list of Blackberry review. This film is a solid biopic that is elevated by its camera work. Genuinely, it is probably my favourite use of the camera in a film this year, as it adds so much personality to the film. Aside from that, I thought that the scale of the film was great and that we really got a good sense of why the company fell off after its massive rise. In something like Dumb Money, which I thought was kind of similar to this, things just kind of happen without much setup or reasoning, but in this film we get almost a roadmap to see how this caused this, or why this person went from this to this. Is good. To sum up this film, it's a good film that verges on being a great one, and far outstrips any expectations I had when going into it. And that was my It Lives Inside review. This movie was crap, but it was crap with style, which gives it bonus points. Outside of its Indian inspiration, this film is super generic and incredibly uninteresting. The monster design is laughable and not scary, but the cast acting is actually quite decent. I don't really have too much to talk about because the film was rather short and fairly bad. Overall, I wouldn't recommend anyone to watch this, but as a directorial debut, there are certainly some points of promise. And that was my Elemental review. Not garbage, not great. Some secret third thing that I will dub mid. The allegory of the different elements being different races truly doesn't work here, as there are so many reasons why these elements shouldn't mix. Disney and Pixar need to understand that humans aren't elements or animals, they're people. Anything else muddies the message and can convey a very different one. Outside of the race allegory though, this film is still just mid. The romance, mid. The world building, mid. The time I had in the cinema,
mid. Yeah, the animation is absolutely stellar and a true masterpiece, but it's a thankless job because I just couldn't bring myself to care. Overall, this just felt like a Zootopia wannabe, and despite its colourful animation, it just felt so drab and dull. And that was my Strays review. Strays is the worst adventure comedy that I've ever seen. Will Ferrell's movies have been hit and miss for ages, but recently it's definitely been a downward trend. For my money, this is worse than Holmes and Watson, as at least that movie had variety in its garbage. This is just a dumpster of edgy humour and nothing else. I liked almost nothing in this film, but from a technical standpoint it's fairly decent. 95% of the time the dogs are real or puppets, which is cute and nice, so that kept it off the bottom of this year's list. But overall, I never want to see or think about this film ever again, and if Will Ferrell could make good movies again, then that will be much appreciated and they'll get better reviews than this. So that was my
Felines review. I really don't know why I bother with these Cinema Epoch, Amazon Prime films. If some other studio could make some really good, really short, light entertainment films that I can stick on at 2 in the morning, that would be much appreciated. A pretentious art film, the subject matter needed someone far more proficient in the subject to do this. The acting isn't horrific, and the film does have moments where it looks like a film, but that could just be the holes in my eyes coming into effect. Before I die, I want to see as much good art as possible, and I can't help but feel that I will look back at something like this and curse my past self. Overall, this is not even close to being the worst Cinema Epoch film of the year. Bikini Hackers. But there is no way that I could recommend The Little Mermaid review. Soulless. If I had to choose one word to describe this film, it would be that. Another would be bloated, as there is so much extra stuff in this that wasn't in the original, and barely any of it is good. The new songs are not good, the old ones are stripped of everything that makes them special, and it screams lazy corporate cash grab. Halle Bailey can sing, and her voice is the best part about the film by far, but her acting while singing is non-existent. But I don't really care though, because like I said, it's the only good thing here. It's a damn shame too, as I like both of the Bailey sisters, but this film is just so much worse than the original, and no, it's not because she's black out. The film is also really ugly in places, in ways that I do not think were intentional. Overall, it's a cynical product of modern Disney, made solely for money and money alone, and it is definitely not the superior version of One Life review. This is the most emotional I have ever been in a cinema. A simplistic story about a small group of people doing something extraordinary. This film's power is in its simplicity. It's inspiring, devastating, hopeful, joyful, anger-inducing, all at the same time. Anthony Hopkins is Anthony Hopkins, but Johnny Flynn is also excellent, even if I was a bit distracted because he kind of reminds me of Max Fosh in the face and the voice. The only negative things that I really have to say about this film are that advertising Jonathan Pryce as a main character was kind of deceptive, and also the pacing in the first 20 minutes was really odd, and the editing throughout could have been a lot better. But all in all, the sheer emotional reaction to this film means that it could not be scored any lower, and I have to recommend that people go and watch.